Hello, everybody. How are you and welcome? Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I know that this is kind of a last-minute stream, but I wanted to get this out of the way. I seriously doubt that I will be returning to this topic again. I have no desire to discuss this person ever again, although I might upload some supplemental material in the future. Hello, my darling Negz. How are you? So today, the Hussy lawsuit was officially closed by the court. Earlier this week, we reached an agreement. All parties agreed to it, and today the court closed the case. So as I go forward, I want everybody to get one message very loud and clear. I want everybody to understand what I'm about to say. Astro, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. The decisions that Negz and I made were made for the good of our family, for the good of our mental health. We took no one else into consideration. We could give a fuck less about any other legal proceeding that is going on now or any legal proceeding that happens in the future involving this individual. We don't care. You're on your own. We were not about to double and triple down to make a point or to move forward in what was proving to be a very, very costly legal battle that could have continued for God only knows how long. And I know that there were some people out there who were disappointed and were like, oh my God, but you've got the money to fight it. Why aren't you fighting it? Well, because there are much better uses for money than paying them to a lawyer to battle a ridiculous, frivolous lawsuit. That is the way I feel. And that is the way Negz feels. So, anybody who doesn't like it can just get the fuck over it. Again, if you're having a problem with this individual now, it is not my problem. You fix it. You move forward and you make a point. I am not the one, and neither is Negz. So, I'm going to have to take you guys back a little bit. And I am going to have to review some salient points. First of all, this lawsuit was not a defamation lawsuit, okay? Before TMU LawTube jumps in and starts to offer up their ignorant opinions, this was not a defamation suit. This was a breach of contract suit. No contract was breached. No contract was breached. Let me emphasize that. No one breached a fucking thing. Okay? There were a number of allegations that were made that were not true. One of them was that I had disclosed details about the non-disclosure agreement to Sherry. That is not true. My lawyer has proof that that is not true. I had exactly one email communication with Sherry, and that was when she had written to Hussy, because Hussy had said that once the first suit was over, that he was going to reimburse all the people who had donated to his $3,000 GoFundMe to hire Maxwell in the TRO application that I made. Sherry wrote to him. He refused to refund her money. And she wrote to me and she asked me if there was any money involved in the settlement. And I told her, I can't discuss it. That was the beginning and that was the fucking end of the conversation. Sherry herself came forward publicly in chats and comment sections to state clearly that I had never revealed a word about anything having to do with the agreement, the settlement agreement. In fact, the person who blew the lid off of the settlement agreement was Maxwell, when he put details of said agreement in a public legal filing. It was not me. It was not me. I didn't say anything. I don't know where he got this information, but whoever told him was wrong. I never said a word. Not a word. Next point. The vast majority of these lawsuits end up in settlement. That's what we were told. Upwards of 99% of them are settled. Why? Because nobody wants to move forward with this albatross around their neck, spending enormous sums of money on legal counsel. Well, at least we were. I can't speak for the other party. Having their lives grind to a halt and proceed at a snail's pace because the courts are quite slow, and have a lawsuit drag out for a year or maybe two, or even more, given the way that Maxwell emails and files motions and TROs and everything else. Who knows when this would have ended? I have absolutely no idea, and I wasn't in the mood to find out. So we decided enough was enough. And we are, oh God, would you get the fuck out of my chat? We were in absolutely no mood to find out how long this was going to take. But I can assure you that we were ready. We were very, very ready. And our lawyer was very well prepared with an enormous amount of evidence. An enormous amount of evidence. Now, one of the things that was said was, oh, but when you get sued for defamation or whatever, because people still don't know what the lawsuit was about, you can't go into court and say, oh, but so-and-so did this, and therefore I'm innocent. No. That's not correct. When you go into court, you have the opportunity to present your side of the story. And when there is money involved, when somebody is asking for money, and there was an enormous amount of money attached to this lawsuit, then by all means, when somebody is accusing you of having disrupted their business, when somebody is saying that you are the cause for their inability to make money on the internet, in this case, then you can absolutely walk into court with a ton of evidence and say, actually, there's another reason why we believe this individual is not succeeding on the internet as a live streamer, as a content creator, whatever. This is something people don't seem to understand. If you are claiming a loss of income, then there are all kinds of ways to prove that the income was lost for another reason. So, one of the things that Maxwell did was he added in to the complaint issues that had been raised in the lawsuit that was filed against me individually. I guess in 23. Those issues were settled when the lawsuit was closed. Those issues were settled, but for some reason, Maxwell wanted to drag it all back up. Well, he opened a door. What he didn't realize was that he opened a door. And it was a door that we were going to walk through with boatloads and boatloads and boatloads of evidence. I'm going to show you some things this evening. I was going to play some video clips, but I'm not going to because, quite frankly, they're nauseating. They are offensive and infuriating. So I will refrain from playing those video clips. Everything from incredibly sexist, disgusting insults leveled at me personally to all kinds of comments about our sex life, comments about our family, comments about things that were intensely personal. There were so many lies that were told, so many lies, which I won't go into now. If I have to do a part 2, then I will do a part 2. But all that aside, that was all internet bullshit. The thing that we could not tolerate, and the thing that we could not let go of, and the thing that we have been swallowing, the anger that we have been swallowing ever since the first settlement, was the fact that he got away with interfering in our family. He decided that he was going to take it to the next level. He doxed my first husband with the name and the picture. He doxed my other ex incorrectly. It was a fail dox. But he kept on threatening me and saying that he had information about him, that he was going to spill, and he was saying that he was going to invite him onto his channel. You know, we've seen this before, right? We've seen how people infiltrate your personal life and speak to people from your personal life in order to get views and money and all that shit, right? It's become all too common around these parts. But what we could not tolerate was the fact that Hussy developed a fixation on the kids. He did. I am not going to characterize what that fixation was. I'm just going to show you examples of what he did to invade our privacy, to throw us off balance, to ruin our mental health, the mental health of everybody in the family, including the kid in question. Now, he started off in June of 2022 when he sent the police to our door over nonsense involving Twitch. It was ridiculous. Now, he didn't come forward and admit that he sent the police to our door. As a matter of fact, as I recall, he indignantly denied it for months. Some of his friends were in his ear, encouraging him never to admit that he had done it. Why did they do that? Well, because it was so entertaining, wasn't it? Watching us go on stream and say sending the police to our door was absolutely out of pocket. It was wrong. So that they could then go on Twitter and go on their channels and go wherever they were going and say that we were paranoid, that we were crazy, that we were picking on him, that we were out of our minds. And this went on for months and months and months. Those were not pleasant months, trust me, because we were waiting for the other bomb to drop. We didn't know where it was going to come from. As luck would have it, Vicky Vibes was on that phone call that he made to the police. She and Hussy had a falling out that lasted a brief period of time. Vicky took to the internet and she described what happened when he called the police. He didn't just call once. He didn't just call twice. He kept calling and calling and calling and calling and getting increasingly enraged with the dispatcher, who, may I remind you, is a dispatcher for a very, very small town with a massive drug problem and a crime problem. And he wouldn't leave it alone. He kept calling and calling and calling. Until finally, and the dispatcher kept on saying to him, this is not something that we handle, basically trying to put him off, right? Eventually, they sent a cop to do a wellness check. That's what the dispatcher finally gave in and said, fuck it, I'll do a wellness check. Later on, Hussy came out with some story about how he was very respectful when he called the police and how he told the cops that there was an autistic child in the house. Very, very considerate. Well, that's not what Vicky said. Vicky didn't mention that. That never came up in Vicky's stream. Was it an oversight? Well, yeah, during your live, Negz, during your live when, and keep in mind, Negz was streaming twice a day back then. He was streaming in the morning when the kid was in school, and he was streaming in the afternoon when the kid was at home. We always thought that it was quite a coincidence that the police came while Negz was streaming in the afternoon when the kid was home. I instructed our lawyer when I told her the story and I showed her the clip of what Vicky said about the nature of the police call. I told her that one of the plans that we should set in motion was finding Vicky and calling her as a hostile witness. We were going to subpoena Vicky Vibes to testify and see what story she told on the stand under oath. And if the story that she told on the stand matched the story that she told on stream. So yeah, Vicky was Vicky was going to be called as a witness eventually. So there's a little bit of tea for you guys to sip on. Negz and I were going to go bare knuckle on this one. And I spent months and months and months and months preparing, gathering evidence. I had excellent, excellent help from some, by the way, some very unexpected quarters, may I add, who diligently beavered away to send clips, screenshots, all kinds of stuff. And with somebody like him, it's very, very challenging because he has lost so many YouTube channels that trying to gather all the evidence that we were going to present in court was a lot. But let me tell you, there are some very, very determined, very loyal, and very angry people out there who saw what happened and didn't appreciate it. Because this went on for a very, very, very long time. And the cameras were rolling. And people were clipping and downloading. And they were kind enough to send me whatever they had. So I was like the conduit, screening everything. I've got Google Drives full of evidence of his behavior, of what he did to us, what he did to our family. Now, I know that these days, a lot of people in the community find it completely unacceptable to involve non-combatants and family members in internet beefs, right? At least most of the time. When it comes to us, nobody seems to give a shit. I don't care. I am going to show you what happened. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots. At the time of the screenshot that I'm about to show you, Hussy and Tragic were buddies. Okay? I have clipped the screenshot to clip out the picture of the person involved and to clip out other information that was included in this DM because I want to protect that person's privacy. Okay, the gray is Tragic and the blue is Hussy. They decided that they were going to go on the Facebook of one of Negz's kids, a 19-year-old who never once mentioned Hussy's name, never once took to Twitter to get into the melee, never once participated in any of this fuck shit. Tragic went on to the Facebook page. He shared the Facebook page with Hussy in this DM. I've cropped that part. Again, a kid who had nothing to do with any of this. Nothing. Never participated in any of this bullshit. But they decided to go out hunting. Do we know for sure he's gay? This is what Hussy wrote. Why do you care, Hussy? Why were you so interested to find out if that kid was gay? Well, I know why, actually. I know why he was interested. Because according to Vicky Vibes, what he was going to do was he was going to blast this kid's information all over Twitter. I'm not done. I'm not done. I want to ask Yo Mama something, because I'm going to answer all of his questions tonight. The questions that he was going to pose to me when he was insisting that I go on his channel, and he demanded that I answer questions about Hussy, by the way. Hussy tried to use the get out of jail free card by saying, well, the kid is an adult. He's a kid. He was a kid who had nothing to do with any of this. Why are you trawling around a Facebook page of a kid who has no participation in this, who has nothing to do with anything? Why? Why? Hussy, Tragic, why were you poking around and trying to dig up information on this kid? And Hussy will say, oh, it's not a problem because I didn't ever tweet it out. Why were you creeping around on that kid's Facebook? Let me ask you something, Yo Mama, and I want to ask the parents who are watching the stream, and I want to ask the parents who are in chat. If some middle-aged man, a complete stranger on the internet, a complete stranger, someone you've never met, someone you have no intention of ever meeting, somebody who doesn't know you from Adam, doesn't know your family, doesn't know anything about you, If a middle-aged man was prowling around on the Facebook pages of your teenage kids, what would you do? Tell me, what would you do? How would you react? Would you just brush it off? Would you just say, oh, well, it's all just internet bullshit? Or would you get really, really, really angry? What would your reaction be? We got very, very angry. Very angry. You know, one of the things that people need to understand is that court is not your Discord server. Court is not your friend group. Court is not your chat. Court is not your silo, your little hug box that you've set up for yourself. Court involves a judge and a jury. How do you think that parents on a jury, parents, grandparents on a jury would react to seeing this behavior? What do you think they would say? What do you think their reaction would be to a nearly 50-year-old man wanting to expose, let's say, a kid who had never done anything to him? Never addressed him, never spoken his name, never trolled him, never contacted him, nothing. And a reminder, by the way, that between the time that the lawsuit was filed and the time that the trial would take place, and now, no, forget the trial, and now, Washington has changed a bit, and so has the jury pool. So is the jury pool. All those Trump people who have moved to Washington are now part of the jury pool. Okay? And I would have been very interested in getting as many of those MAGA people on the jury as possible. So what do you think that MAGA people and parents and grandparents sitting on a jury would have made of that? It would have been quite something, wouldn't it? Sure would have. This is not harmless internet nonsense. It's not tea. It's not drama. It had a real impact on us, all of us, because he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't stop. Now, a lot has been made of the fact that there were all kinds of pedo insults and predator and all that thrown around. Okay. And the fact that as a gay man, his life was in danger and so on. All right. Let me show you something. What do you call this? What is that? You are dating a pedo, Negz the Chomo. Yep. What is Hussy's fascination with the minor child living under this roof? He became weirdly and disturbingly fixated on that kid. Fixated. Fixated to the point that he wanted that kid to be removed from the house. He made no secret of it. Made no secret of it. I'll get to that in a minute. What's that? You can only get a pedo chomo bum to date you. Here we go. Again, the P word, right? The P word. I've got so many of these. In love with a predator. Look at that. In love with a predator. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm getting to the worst part of the defamation, Marchioness. Attic boy would definitely leave the toothless hag for a child. Child-sized blow-up doll. Let's see. Okay, now we're getting into a whole other thing. You see, Hussy wait a minute, sorry. Let me show you this. What is that? What does that say? Yep. Okay, here we are. So, Hussy wanted the household investigated. He made no secret of it. I have a recording of a Twitter Spaces that he was on with Vidal and Yotto. Imagine when Vidal and Yotto are the voices of reason, where Hussy said, I haven't called CPS yet. And they were trying to explain to him that this is not what CPS is for. It's not what CPS is for. And he refused. This childless man, this man who has never had kids, this man who has never raised a child, never been responsible for a child, decided that he was going to operate as judge, juror, and executioner over our family, that he was going to invade our privacy, that he was going to traumatize the kid. Now, here, I know this is hard to read, sorry. It's from Crochet and Crime. It says, CPS is to help real abused children who are in life-threatening situations. It's not a tool for you to use to shut someone up online, Hussy. You adults want to do stupid shit to each other, then go ahead, but when you misuse CPS, children die. That is on you, period. To which he responds, what is your definition of real abuse? And she responds, there are children who are being beaten, burned, sexually exploited, starved, and etc., who need a social worker. But when you make false claims, those social workers can't get to the children whose lives are in actual danger. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, Melissa. Thank you for chiming in. And thanks for mentioning that, Negz. The person who got this ball rolling was Black Eye TV. He clipped a portion of one of Negz's streams out of context. I have that clip. I'm not going to play it because, quite frankly, I have seen that clip so many times and it makes me sick and I don't feel like watching it again. In the clip, Negz was talking to somebody in chat. And he was saying that Negz was saying that if he had been the kid's age, and I think that at the time he was 14, and there was unlimited porn on the computer, that he would never leave his room. He was talking about himself. He was talking about himself as a 14-year-old. He wasn't talking about the child living under this roof. Hussy seized onto that and he would not let it fucking go. He would not let it go. And that's when he started his little hissing thing. Oh, what would a judge say? Well, I'll return the volley. What would a jury say, Hussy? What would a jury say? I have so many screenshots and so many clips of you talking about that kid. I have clips of you going on panel to talk about the kid. I have clips of you on your channel, on your Rumble stream, on your Twitch, on multiple platforms, on Twitter, everywhere, over and over and over and over again. Over and over again. And again, his get out of jail free card was, oh, well, it's not a big deal because I never called. Hussy, I want you to take a look at the Ethan Klein story, and I want you to take a look at the treatment that people like Denims and others are getting for spreading dog whistles over and over and over again because they picked up a rumor or a falsehood from a Reddit thread, broadcast it, and you can see in the chat people saying, call CPS, call CPS, call CPS. Do you think that we're so stupid that we don't know what a fucking dog whistle is? Do you think we don't know? You think we're not aware? Not a moment's peace. Not a moment's peace. Ever since that man entered our lives, not a moment's peace. And keep in mind that he had palled around and he had teamed up, or he was sucking up to certain channels that had been spreading lies certainly about Negz for years, but also about me. Recently, when Negz and I got together, they really went in on me. There were rumors that were being spread that I had, let's say, an impure interest in that kid. That I had moved into the house because I had my eye not on Negz, but elsewhere. Everybody knew what that meant. Everybody knew what that meant. And there were other rumors that were spread as well. Now, let me ask you something. Going back to the issue of, it's very dangerous to accuse, gay men of being predators and pedos and everything else. I guess that when it comes to individuals spreading rumors about people who aren't gay, though, that's perfectly okay, right? You can do it over and over and over and over again. What about when the people that you are spreading those lies about? What about when those people are looking after a minor child? What do you think the risk is to parents when communities are spreading these lies about them? See, Hussy, you don't have kids, okay? You don't understand what it means to falsely label somebody with a kid with that label. You don't understand what it means when somebody says, oh, he let this woman into the house and she's dangerous, potentially. Right? What happened to you, Hussy? What happened? You lost a few channels because you violated terms of service. You lost an income. Guess what happened to us, Hussy? We got 4 CPS visits. 4. With all these rumors about pedophilia and molestation and bad parenting and abuse and neglect. 4 CPS visits, Hussy. And I am not saying that you called because there's no proof of it. What I am saying is that you participated in a climate where our family was actually put at risk. For real. Not a joke. Not imaginary. We were put at risk. Over and over and over again. 10 CPS visits since 2018. 4 since 2023. 4. And yeah, sure. We were accused of lying about those visits too. We were accused of lying about that. We showed proof, but of course we were lying. By the water carriers, the simps, the, etc. So yeah, 4 CPS visits. What do you think that does to somebody's mental health? What do you think that does to a kid, Hussy? A kid who is a teenager and is fully aware of what's going on. What do you think it does to that kid? What do you think happens when you're going on stream over and over and over again and you're teaming up with other channels and you're spreading this pedo-chomo thing around and you have an audience with a sizable number of mentally ill, bored people sitting around acting like, I'm going to be Captain Sabaho. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to rescue that kid. And I don't know anything about them. And I don't know anything about the family. All I know is I don't like Negz. I don't like her. I don't like the look of her. I'm pretty sure something's going on. Let's get the authorities involved. You created that climate, Hussy. You were part of that. And all of that, Hussy, all of it was going to be presented to a jury with parents and grandparents. And you would have had to sit in the witness stand and you would have had to explain why you took such a keen interest in those boys. I'm not saying, and I'm not suggesting that it was some weird sexual thing. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that your fixation, your obsession with our family got totally out of hand. Totally out of hand. You invaded our privacy so many times, I lost count. We sent you a cease and desist in August of 2022. You would not stop. You got worse. You teamed up with MFW, and you sat there while she threatened us, drunk, going off, threatening us over and over and over and over again. And you thought that was hilarious. You sat on panel with her and talked about that kid over and over and over and over again. You wouldn't stop talking about that kid. You would not stop talking about our family, you wouldn't stop. And it made my skin crawl. Hussy. I have so many clips from panels that you went on, and the language that you used was absolutely unconscionable. Again, all clips that would have been played in front of a jury, Hussy, of parents. Not your Twitter followers, not your audience, not your simps. Now, recently, and I have to be very careful about the way I word this, I will be vague. Hussy reached out to one of the parties in the case in Indiana and offered the services of his lawyer to that person. The lawyer, who was nothing to write home about, was at least smart enough not to contact that individual himself. And I have the screenshots, and it is confirmed that that was him on a sock account. What possible assistance could a lawyer who is not licensed to practice in the state of Indiana offer to someone in a case that has nothing to do with them? My lawyer, or I should say our lawyer, looked into possible ways to report Maxwell to the bar over that. The thing is that Maxwell was smart enough not to do it himself. He sent Hussy out to do it. And because Maxwell didn't make the overture himself, there was really nothing that could be done to report him to the bar. But our lawyer was looking into having him sanctioned for it. And we were going to pursue additional we were going to file additional motions regarding that foray into a case that had nothing to do with him, about which he knows nothing. He does not know what the charges are. He doesn't know what the affidavit says. He knows nothing. But he decided that he was going to stick his nose in. And the funny thing is, our lawyer, such a good lawyer, Lou, is really amazing, because Lou pointed something out that had not occurred to me, because I was as mad as a wet fucking hen when I saw these screenshots. And she said, well, the way that the communication closed with this lady telling him to go fuck himself, she said, all that proves is that there are a lot of people out there who don't like him. I said, yep, there sure are. She said that she had gone through his Twitter feed and she was absolutely astonished at the language that he was using to berate people, to go after people, particularly women, the language that he would use to go after these people, the way that he would address people on live stream. And then, of course, he's got a whole separate case going on in an entirely different jurisdiction, in which the filing was almost identically written to the filing in the DC case. How many people can you blame because you lost your income? How many people? No, you lost your income because you kept on losing channels over and over and over again. And the more channels you lose, the harder it is for your audience to find you. It's just in the nature of YouTube. And maybe there were people who were turned off by the way that you addressed individuals, you addressed people. I can't rule it out. All of those insults that were leveled at Charlie Gold, yelling at Vidal, "Go back to India, bitch." You remember that lovely thing. All of that. There are people in the community who have made excuses for it. I could not give a fuck less about who forgives him, who makes excuses for him. I don't care that everybody's moved on. Thank you, my darling. I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Negz, for gifting a membership. That is all up to you guys to work out. It has nothing to do with me. I am not interested in getting involved in your YouTube politics and your reindeer games and, trying to poach each other's audiences. I don't care. But every single one of those clips and screenshots was going to be shown to a jury. Again, to create an alternative theory of why the income dropped. Could it be because you are very indiscreet on Twitter? You are very indiscreet in live streams. You are very indiscreet in the way that you address people. My goodness, No Name. So generous. Thank you. Thank you so much. That is very, very kind. I really, really appreciate it. There is so much that I would like to share that I'm not going to because it's the better part of discretion. He tried to blame us at one point for his attack at a gay bar where he quote unquote broke his ribs. I say quote unquote because whatever. I don't care if he did or didn't, and I don't care if he showed proof or didn't. It doesn't matter. All I know is that the story changed about 3 or 4 times. Okay. He tried to say that he thought that we might have something to do with it, like we hired a hit squad to go after him at a gay bar in New York. No, that never happened. That never happened. I also had a smoking gun, which I can reveal now. When he was still palling around with MFW told a complete and utter lie. It was one of the many lies that she told while they were supposedly friends, drinking buddies or whatever. She told him that one time when she was out boozing at a bar, that she met up with a friend of Negz's, a guy that Negz has known for many, many, many years. And that this friend of Negz's had told her quite a tale that was very lurid about some supposed terrible things that had happened between him and Negz. Okay? Hussy decided that he was going to go on his channel and he was going to repeat this story because God knows it didn't get far enough the first time. And he mentioned the person's name. That allegation was straight up 100% slam dunk, no holds barred, no doubt, fucking defamation. It was a false story. And wouldn't you know that one of the pieces of evidence that I was going to present was an affidavit that this person swore to. This person wrote out. It was a sworn affidavit that they sent me a while ago that I was keeping under my hat, stating bluntly and plainly that this conversation never took place. It never took place. It was false. Hey, Breeze. That was something that I was going to present in front of a jury. And then you would have had to explain where you heard that story and why it is that you repeated it. I had a lot going into this. I had a lot. Lou was absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of clips, screenshots, and everything else that I brought with me. And I want to close out with one final thing. One of the things that he was trying to hold over my head was that in January of 2024, Crochetter did a live stream. It was a very innocent live stream where he spoke about a couple of topics, and he covered Hussy. Hussy had been coming for him for months at that point, you know, insulting his appearance, insulting his teeth, you know, the usual. And Crochetter, who the last time I checked was a gay man, decided to shade Hussy. I was in chat at the time. Crochetter started by talking about AJ Lair, and I was in chat. And one of the things that happened was that they brought this live stream up as evidence that I had violated the non-disparagement clause of the NDA. No such thing. Absolutely not. I was commenting in chat only when the topic was AJ Lair. When he was talking about Hussy, I was nowhere to be found. I was not chatting. I was not talking. I was not commenting. So, they got mad because at the time, Welfare Wig, remember Welfare Wig, was in chat. Now, if you go into Crochetter's stream now, you won't find Welfare Wig because it looks like they deleted their channel. And Maxwell made an issue out of the fact that Welfare Wig had been tormenting Hussy on Twitter, and that Welfare Wig was a threat, and Welfare Wig was this and that, and that, you know, I had quote tweeted Welfare Wig at one point. I'll get to that in a second. And that I was interacting with Welfare Wig. Well, what Maxwell didn't realize was by opening that door and by saying that random Twitter accounts who somebody perceives as a threat can be brought in, and they can be used as proof that somebody has violated an NDA or that somebody is harassing you because they're teaming up with some random, you know, anonymous Twitter account. Guess what? Guess what we were going to bring in? We were going to bring in Principal Todd. We were going to bring in Liana Fata. We were going to bring in Russ. Russ, who for years now has been all over the internet in various places, openly saying that he decided to come after us because of Hussy, because of the way that we had spoken to him, and blah, 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 blah. All of them were going to be brought into it, and their Twitter feeds were going to be brought into evidence. And their presence in chat was going to be brought into evidence. Absolutely, Anna. And our lawyer was looking through these Twitter feeds, and she was like, what the fuck? What is going on here? I said, hey, he wants to bring Welfare Wig and Crochetter into it, especially Welfare Wig, a person I don't know who they are. I've never met this person. I don't know who the fuck they are. Well, we can bring in Principal Todd, who has gone IRL on us, who has committed doxing, stalking, etc., etc., etc. If you guys think that's ridiculous, well, what's the phrase? We'll let a jury decide, right? Let a jury decide. But now there's no need. And by the way, Principal Todd, you caught a break because our lawyer was working on writing out a subpoena to Twitter to figure out who the fuck it is that you are, because you are a dangerous creep. There is something very wrong with you. So now you don't have to worry about it. That subpoena is not being worked on anymore. The case is closed. You're free to stalk and dox another day and go IRL again. But I'd advise you not to. That would be my advice. All I can say is that we were very, very, very well prepared. Very well prepared. And to close out, during the TRO hearing, this was great. The TRO that was not granted. He said that I insulted him by referring to him as welfare. No, I was addressing welfare wig. I was not addressing Hussy. I was not talking about Hussy. I was obviously talking about welfare wig. And he also said that when I quote tweeted welfare wig on Twitter and I had a skull emoji, that he felt that that was me threatening his life. He actually said that in front of a fucking judge in a DC court. He said he felt that I was threatening his life. Now, chat, in fairness, I think that we all know what a skull emoji means. Yeah. Yeah. He said this under oath, you guys. We have made it abundantly clear that we have no intention of ever going to New York. We have no interest in visiting that city. I don't even want to go to New York to see Othello, which I would love to see. No. And I keep on saying, and one final thing. Hussy, you cost me a lot of money. And we're not just talking about legal fees. And honestly, the people that encouraged you to come after, quote unquote, my dead aunt's money, that you should have held out until my aunt died to come after me. And then, wow, wouldn't you know it? You came after me. I should send all those people a bill for the fucking legal services that I had to pay for through the nose for the past couple of months. I have not been able to work since this bullshit started. I have not been able to work for two reasons. One is because of these fucking goddamn lawsuits, these constant court appearances that I keep getting dragged to for absolutely no goddamn reason. And the second reason is that because some people have decided to get way too familiar, way too fucking familiar with both of us, right? Befriending locals, going through people's Facebook pages, stalking our former employee, trying to sabotage our business, reporting our Kickstarter. It goes on and on and on. And my biggest fear was that wherever I did manage to get a job, once this shit was over, was that people would, the little local spies would get back to their friends on YouTube and tell them where I was working. And the Yelp reviews would start coming in if I worked in retail. The phone calls would start coming in. The stalking would start. Sending weirdos into the business. Flooding the business with junk mail, etc., etc., etc. It's not like it hasn't happened before, okay? It's happened before. So wherever it is that I land, wherever it is outside of the attic and outside of the attic underground that I end up getting work, even if it's only part-time, it will be in a position that is not a public position. It'll be some sort of an office position where the likelihood that somebody will find me will be very slim. But Hussy was half of the reason why I was unable to earn a living for all this time, because of this lawsuit, the motions, the TRO filings, the constant communication with the lawyer, all of it. He prevented me from working. He was part of the reason that I could not work. So you cost me money. You think you lost money? I lost money. I lost a lot of money. And now it's over. So now we can get our lives back and we can go on to the next thing. But for all the people who conveniently left out the part where he called me a pedophile, he called me a pedo lover, he called me a pedo enabler, he called Negz a pedo, he called Negz a chomo, believe me, that sample of screenshots is a drop in the bucket. I have sent so much stuff to that lawyer, so much stuff, and it was all going to come out in court. So you want to sit there and you want to bellyache about, oh my God, my life as a gay man and blah, blah, blah. But you felt that you had the right to call us those names and team up with people who were accusing me of having an inappropriate relationship with a kid that I adore and I protect with my life, and force CPS visits. That's what happened to us. That was part of what happened to us. All right? Yep. Anyway, thank you, No Name. Thank you, my love. I appreciate you buying those memberships. I really, really appreciate you guys. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to all of you for being here. And I'm not stupid. I know that people showed up. It's a drama stream. People love drama streams. People have been very curious. So now going forward, when people give you their opinions, their uninformed, ignorant opinions about what happened in this case, at least I got the word out first. And now I am going to clear the floor and clear the deck. And I'm going to let Negz have at it. I really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you again for your support, and I will see you the next time.